All right, so as of recently, there's been a lot of incel virgin weirdos complaining about the quote unquote censorship that Sony is placing over content in video games.
So this fine gentleman that you see before you is Broken Games HD, and he's one of the other console peasants, ones that are on the Weapon Wheel podcast where they talk about video games, the usual. But he's also good friends with another person who thinks that you are a virgin incel loser. And that is going to be someone by the name of Black Bond. And not surprising, both of these people have me blocked. So let's go ahead and laugh at this person for removing this video.
And I called them virgin incel weirdos, but I actually just went into the Discord and consulted with the homies on what the actual name of these people are, because I'm very uninitiated in the anime culture, and I'm kind of proud to be. I'm a complete anime casual, and I'll be the first one to tell you. The only animes I've watched in my life are Dragon Ball Z and Naruto.
Hot damn, you really are a casual. So why did you have to consult with other people about what anime things are? Why can't you do your own research? Oh, that's right. Console peasants, they don't do their own research. They just take everything at face value and they run it as the truth. I guess that's kind of true about a lot of the people that I make videos on. I think I might have a problem.
And I never even finished Dragon Ball Z. So I'm an anime casual, and I'm proud to say that, right? So I'm unfamiliar with the jargon and the terminology of the people around anime culture.
But this console peasant is really familiar with teraflops, and he doesn't know anything about teraflops because he doesn't know that just because the number is higher doesn't... that's a whole different rant. Let's just get into this.
Not the people in anime, the people around anime culture. So I consulted with the homies, and they told me that the people who are obsessed with specifically these cartoon borderline child pornography caricatures in anime, you call these people weebs.
Dude, I promise you, weebs are not pedophiles. There's a huge difference. And you see, it's people like you that do this. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the things that happen on the internet. I'm sure you kind of aren't because you're not very intelligent. But it's gotten so bad that people have been taking to reporting all of these things to like government officials and also to websites. And even this one from the Internet Watch Foundation, they even had to put out a tweet stating that in 2019, our analysts assessed more reports than ever before, but only half contain imagery we could action. False reports waste charity resources and can distress our analysts. We could argue until we're blue in the face about this Broken Games, but let's just understand something. Child predators aren't attracted to lolly porn, and most people that are attracted to lolly porn aren't pedophiles. And usually that's because actual pedophiles will go after actual children, not, pixels on a screen. But like I said, I don't think you're very smart and understand that concept, so we're just going to leave it at that and move on to this next part.
Okay, this is honestly new to me. Like I said, I've heard the term before, but I honestly didn't know what the hell a weeb and what a waifu was.
Come on, Broken Games, even E-Thoughts know exactly what a weeb is. Stop acting like you're just not informed. I think this is an act. I think you're fucking punking me right now.
Right? But you've seen it on Twitter. Dudes with these cartoon pics of little girls that could be borderline underage with their tits out and they ass out, and it's like a cartoon version of them. It's very, very disturbing that a man could actually be obsessed with this type of content and like this type of content and not like actual women in real life. It's very disturbing. You could borderline say it's honestly like child porn and some pedo stuff for dudes to be liking these like teenage cartoon pics, right?
Lord forgive me. Okay, drawings don't have ages, and even if we were to assume that they did, they're not real. They are literally scribbles on a piece of paper or pixels on a screen. They aren't real. They're made up from someone's imagination. They're not real kids. No real kids are getting harmed here. What the hell is your problem?
So, as I was saying, these weebs, as I've been told that they are, who are obsessed with these waifus, right? using this terminology and jargon is even uncomfortable for me.
This dude has PTSD, just like my man for Neverworld, from something that never happened to him. He's traumatized literally by words that exist that don't almost mean anything. This is how uptight this dude is.
But they've been coming after Sony recently, and they are trying to do it under the guise of the principle that censorship is wrong, right?
That's because censorship is bad, Broken Games. Just because I don't personally like all the furry porn that exists on Patreon doesn't mean that it should just be banned outright. It's just not for me. People obviously want to see wolves fucking foxes or something. I don't know. But that doesn't mean that it should be banned. Now, if they're actually harming, like, real animals, then yeah, deplatform them, take them out of here. That's why Patreon's having a shitstorm right now, removing anime or Japanese-style drawings. Even in this picture that you can see, that's where it's showing where they just said, well, the character looks like their face is under the age of 18, but who's really to tell when the character could be over the age of 18? There are some characters that are over the age of 18 that have just, pretty young faces. There's also petite women who are over the age of 18 as well. So should we just ban all of those too? No one's saying that you can't have all of these things. Like, sure, like I said, the furry drawings, I don't like them, but that doesn't mean that they should be banned. That doesn't mean that they should be censored, especially on a platform that in the past has already allowed these types of games to exist. Senran Kagura being one of the biggest things for the PlayStation brand, and that was one of the only places that you can play them. But now everything is moving over to the PC or the Nintendo Switch, where you can play those games censor-free almost, to a certain degree. But they are as the companies intended, and that's why some of them are jumping ship from Sony's platform, and they're moving to Nintendo and PC to further sell their games. Even Xbox is becoming more receptive to the Japanese audience, even though consoles don't sell all that well. They're still making an attempt. So yes, censorship is bad, and I don't think that we should be removing things because you don't like it.
Now, I'll take one case. There was one case yesterday of an idiot trying to claim that the Sony version of Code Vein was censored when it wasn't. It was one image where the Xbox version had blood and the other image where the PS4 version had blood. And it wasn't because it was censored. It was because certain things in that game, for example, you could change, you can customize your character. So there may be certain situations where that are not static, right? It's like dynamic. There could be blood here in this situation. There could not be. And it's Code Vein. It's Code Vein. There's blood everywhere in that game, regardless of the version. You could look at a demo of the PS4 version and see that there is clearly blood everywhere when you are playing that game. When you hack enemies, when things even in the cutscenes, there's blood.
Okay, humor me for a second. Broken Games is actually telling the truth here. And that was after, looking at some of the PS4 network test gameplay that people uploaded. And you could see in these clips that there is in fact blood on the PlayStation 4 version during the network test, so essentially the beta. So there was no case of censorship here, and that's fair. But the problem that we're bringing up isn't necessarily the blood, it's more of the visual novels, more of the games that already exist in Japan, and now they're taking those and they're censoring out some of the things that women have, like boobs, or even just like panties. Like, they're censoring all of these things out. That's the kind of censorship that we're upset about.
But like I said, they're using that as a guise, right? To fight against this censorship with which what they are really upset about is Sony censoring this content in gaming that could be borderline child porn.
I don't know how many anime this dude has actually seen besides the two that he's listed, because most people they usually watch more than that because it's the hype thing that the homies watch. But most of the characters that he's probably seen are usually younger than the age of 18 anyways, and they're usually in suggestive scenes, which is why it's not necessarily aimed towards children, and that's why they're not real people.
That could be borderline stuff that pedos would like. No normal man is going to be mad about a video game company censoring what's essentially could be determined or mistaken for a little girl. It's very ambiguous.
It's almost like you're being ignorant for some reason and you choose just not to believe that any other games besides anime ones are being censored, or as you call us, the weird incel virgin losers, or whatever it is that you called us. So in some cases, the PlayStation 4 here in America version of Devil May Cry 5 was censored. They had to use a glare to censor out an ass for some reason, and then they later fixed it in a patch. But that's not the only case of just any kind of censorship. Even for the Nintendo Switch, when they brought over The Witcher 3, in the trailer, they were showing the Hanging Man's Tree, or Hanged Man's Tree, if you're, super savvy that way. And it shows in the trailer that there are no dead bodies there, because you can't show that in a trailer. They should have just left it out at that point. But in the actual game, there's bodies everywhere. So yeah, in certain cases, there are censorship. Even for the actual weebs, if you wanted to use this argument as well, I'm going to give you this one for free. You can say that they censored more of the anime child pornography games when Crunchyroll brought over that Danmachi game for the phones, and they censored out the touching feature out of that game. So yeah, censorship is bad in all cases.
Right? Okay. And a lot of them try to make the case like, she's the woman, this girl in this anime is 25. But it's very clear to the human eye, anybody who's keeping it real, that this character was designed to be, their age was designed to be ambiguous because they designed them like a 14-year-old girl.
I'm sorry, but there's not an anime character alive. And I say that in the most metaphorical sense. There's no anime character that exists that is 14 years old. I mean, unless you want to go by like the day they were drawn, I guess. But even then, they don't have real ages. We already went over this. But they look more like aliens than they do actual people. And if you can't tell the difference between a drawn cartoon and real people, or in this case, real kids, then you do need to seek mental help. I'm almost getting a headache. I don't think it's from this coronavirus either.
That's very clear, and that's not debatable. Right, so that's really what they're mad at Sony for doing, is banning and censoring this weirdo content that they get off from.
In most cases, I don't know if you know this, Broken Games, but in most cases, there's nothing inherently sexual about anime characters. And if your first instinct is to say that they are sexualized or that they are being sexual in any way, that says more about you than the people that are observing this art. I mean, if you want to keep it real, let's go ahead and keep it real here. No one immediately just like, oh man, this anime character's dressed up in the finest clothing from the Victorian era. Time to masturbate.
Okay, that's what they're really upset about. It's not about violence. If you think Sony is trying to ban violence in their video games, you are a complete idiot. Let me tell you why. Most of Sony's first-party games are violent. Last of Us, violent. God of War, violent. Ghost of Tsushima, coming out, violent. Death Stranding, that's not really first party, but it's a Sony exclusive for now. The level of violence ranges, but Sony's big Killzone, Resistance, whether it's a current IP or a past one, whether first party or somehow exclusive through some type of deal, a lot of Sony's content, their biggest titles, are violent.
But the problem is that no one's arguing about violence being censored, and the ones that were from Code Vein. So is that what you're going to use to kind of generalize everything? Because more people are upset that they've edited clothing. Those people that go, ugh, like Sega hire me. I censored those naughty thighs. That's what people are upset about, you wheelchair symbol.
So there is no way possible Sony would want to ban violent content when they know their audience. If you think that, you are a complete and absolute moron. Sony would not go against their own self-interest like that. They have no interest in banning violence or blood.
Another person that wants to defend corporation, I see. I mean, that's what you get when you deal with a console peasant. It's always about how good the company is. They're not going to do this. They know all the strategies, right? And that's why you get paid from Sony? Oh, that's right, you guys don't. Oh, and by the way, he talks for a while, so skip.
Because like I said, their biggest titles are violence. God of War is a lot of people's. But like I said, that's just a cover up for them. That because also this same person that said that, when I went, and it never fails, when you see these people make posts on Twitter, they're complaining about the censorship. Here's what you do, and it works every single time. You click on their Twitter, you go to their Twitter profile, and every single time, without fail, like clockwork, what do they have posted or retweeted? A whole bunch of borderline 14-year-old anime girls.
So this is the strategy you went with, using Bidoof's law against everything that you know. You said, yeah, if you go to these people's profile, look at what they're liking and retweeting. That makes my argument, because you don't have one. So because they retweet something that is not censored, somehow you think that we want everything censored? That makes no sense.
Waifus. It never fails. So it's not a coincidence that all of y'all have these, these scantily clad little girls on y'all Twitter profile, but y'all claiming y'all mad about blood or gore missing in games.
Running with the one example that you were right about, but not actually bringing up the other ones. See, it's like you know what you're doing. You're only bringing up that one instance to own the gamers, to own the weeaboos. But you're not making an actual argument because the other stuff that you didn't talk about, that's actually getting censored. And all censorship is bad. If they censored God of War or The Last of Us, we'd be pissed off about it too. So your argument really doesn't even exist.
That's not a coincidence. You're not mad at no blood or no gore missing. You're mad because your weirdo fetish is being taken away from you.
Do you know that at one time they actually censored some words in a Madden song because it referenced something else? Yeah, we were upset about that too. Censorship is bad from all sides and they shouldn't do it. Stop trying to pass the blame onto the weebs for being mad about violence when they were making sure that everything was intact. If you don't speak up as a consumer, then the company will walk all over you.
You honestly belong in a jail cell, but I'm not gonna go there. I ain't gonna go there.
There are some stories I've heard about you, Broken Games, but to be completely fair with you, I'm not going to bring them up in this video. I'll let the other people find this. I'll let them Google search it about you, so that way they can look up the truth for themselves.
I went there though. But they're weirdos. These weebs are complete weirdos. All right, and I'm not afraid to call out this community because that's what they are. It's weird. It's strange. It's odd.
Apparently you were afraid enough to remove this video. Good thing we got it saved though, just in case you managed to take it down like another good YouTuber friend of ours.
And with reports that we've been seeing about Reset Era, and if you haven't seen the report about Reset Era, it's that a lot of people in Reset Era in the Discord have admitted to being in child porn rings and all this disgusting stuff, and trying to just been in child abuse and all these disgusting cases and all that. Trust me, there's a connection between people who are obsessed with waifus and all these cartoon girls and pedophilia.
There is absolutely no link. And also, to speak on the Reset Era thing, well, Reset Era, they don't particularly like Japanese games either. Let's look at a recent example. This is obviously after this video came out and after you removed it, but Reset Era hates anime. They don't like the things that are in it, and that's why they always want to change it to make it not so anime. They recently just did Persona 5, where they saw this scene. I think it was Persona 5 Royal version? I don't remember, but yeah, it's one of those games. But they censored out where one of the characters is being hit on in the red light district by two other males, and they changed the context of the scene, and it was because Reset Era wanted it to be changed. Now, obviously, the actual scene was only changed so much in context, but they didn't remove the scene at all. So the Reset Era people can kick rocks for all I care. They want to censor everything, and games shouldn't be censored. If anything, you're more like them than you think you are.
I'm just keeping it real. There's a clear connection. There's a clear connection. I'm not saying all of them are that, but I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of them. I think that's safe to say.
Well, then you're in harm's way because that's not a safe thing to say. Because if you look at the actual numbers, pedophiles aren't really in the anime community. Most of them lay in other places, places that you probably frequent. And in fact, they probably are in more so Minecraft servers or Discord servers, things that mostly adults use.
So, right now there's just a lot of them trying to promote this notion and forward this idea that Sony is just banning everything left and right and censoring everything left and right. No, they're not. No, they're not. False. Lies.
Do you know why most games that are coming from Japan don't really come out on the PlayStation 4 anymore? Or if they do, then they make sure that they're in line with everything that's coming out here in the West? Well, that's because most of them have moved to other platforms. The games don't exist anymore. Games who have come out in recent memory were already being censored before they even hit. And that's why most developers in Japan just don't make their games the same way, because usually when they make it with censorship for the PlayStation 4 version, it ruins everything. They have to go back and code the entire thing. So before you start moving on to your next point, I'm going to need some evidence other than, dude, trust me, because right now you don't make a very compelling one.
All right, it's fabrication. It's untrue. Okay, it's fake news. All of that. It ain't true. Stop it. Just keep it real. Just keep it funky. Just say that you're a weirdo and you want to look at some borderline underage girls in cartoon form. Just keep it real. Don't blame Sony. Don't use Sony as a scapegoat to get to what you want.
Broken Games, just admit that you love violence. Just say that you're a serial killer, okay? You go out and you like to murder people or you have fantasies about killing people. I mean, what's wrong? You play violent video games, right? You know, like The Last of Us. You wish that there was a zombie apocalypse to go and stab people in the eye? I just really want to know. Just admit, just keep it real. Be funky about it. Come on.
Don't do that. Just keep it real. Just say you a weirdo. Live your truth, because that's what it's really about. That's what you're really mad about. Okay? So no, Sony ain't banning stuff left and right, censoring stuff left and right.
So it was a little while ago that when I looked up this article, I had to make sure that I got all of the information right. I mean, some of us actually like to put out something that has a little bit of truth in it, just sometimes. And it occurred to me, why might Sony be doing these changes? And a lot of people probably cited this article from VentureBeat, and it shows where you could go and look up when they moved from Japan all the way to San Mateo, California. And that's where they station their headquarters now to do everything that they do. So at some point, you have to wonder, well, why did they move there? Well, we can go over the article together. That way we can truly get an understanding of what their motives were and what's exactly happening with the company behind it. There's only one part I really want to look at, and you can, go to the article yourself and read it. But there's one part that says this is a major shift for the PlayStation division, and it signifies that Sony wants to redouble its efforts to generate as much revenue as possible from the core audience that has rushed to the PlayStation 4 this generation. Console gaming is a $30 billion business globally, according to Newzo, and it's also one of the few sectors, along with insurance, where Sony has a clear path to profitability. And refocusing on the West makes a ton of sense for Sony when you consider that Japan is just not that into console games anymore. So what we can gather from this article, and even from Sony's motives from the point that you made this video all the way up to now, is that they wanted to focus on the gaming audience that bought the PlayStation 4 the most. And obviously it didn't sell terribly in Japan, but they don't really play console games in Japan, and that's from numbers that they've already released. But if we take a look at North America, we consume the most video games, we buy the most consoles, and that's why they want to focus all of their efforts, or at least most of them, on the people that will give them the most money. And that's not a bad strategy for a company, it's just what they do. But Sony wants to make the most money as much as possible, and they want to do it in the best way possible. And being a Japanese company, there's some things that just don't happen. And so by having everything being controlled from here, That's how they do that. By making games, they have to censor it for an audience that they want to, buy their consoles and buy their games. So, by my own logic, and this is just me speaking, if they censor the anime games, then the people that mainly buy a PlayStation 4 won't have to have anime shoved in their face if they don't necessarily care about it. People such as yourself. That's why there's not a lot of furry stuff. It's slowly creeping into anime, but it's not necessarily the most, common thing ever. But Sony wants to make as much money as possible, and they're going to do just that.
Oh my God, they covered up a little bit of boob hair. Oh my God, so what? Even if that was the case, they covered up some boob a little bit. Go see a titty in real life, bro.
I don't know why. It's always the people that scream about getting sex as though it's some kind of winning factor. Like, sex is great, but looking at big anime titties on Twitter.com and usually on Pixiv, that's pretty good too. Who says that those are mutually exclusive? Why can't I look at big titties in real life and on the internet? Oh, that's right, because we're virgin incel weirdos. I forgot.
Why are you like... And they want to make it like, oh, this is just the tipping point. Oh, it's a slippery slope. No, it's not. Banning or censoring something like that is not a slippery slope. It's gonna stay. It starts right there, and it's gonna stop right there. Grand opening, grand closing.
So if they censor your favorite game, are you gonna complain to them, or are you just gonna eat the slop that's given before you, like a good little boy that you are? Are you gonna rise up and say, well, this isn't right. They shouldn't be censoring this? I don't think you will, because you love anything that Sony puts out, apparently. That or any console, for a matter of fact. So why can't you just say, I love censorship? Because that's what you're essentially doing. And by the way, the Reset Era people, they love censorship too. You're just like them. So why is it that we have to censor everything that's not for you?
We just stopping it at the stuff that could damn near be pedophilia.
So what are your efforts to actually stop real sex predators and child molesters? Are you doing anything about that, or are you just screeching about cartoons on the internet?
Okay, we starting it and stopping it right there. It ain't getting no further. It's not going like slide into censorship of violence. It's not. It's not. Okay, so stop it.
That's not necessarily true, Broken Games. Do you remember a time when you could go onto YouTube or anywhere else, for a matter of fact, and you could call people whatever you wanted? And in fact, I'm going to say most of them right now. You could call people retarded. You can call them a faggot. You could call them gay. You can call them anything. You can say, oh, you're a little fucking shithead. You kind of can't do that anymore, because if you do it, that's considered hate speech. So yes, censorship is bad.
It's not going to happen. You know what this is about, and you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm out. Let me know what y'all think about this.
Oh, we will. And, you'll probably end up blocking those people too. But that's the thing is, if you're catering to these people who want to censor things, such as yourself, if you so much as give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Companies shouldn't be in charge of what is suitable for me and then suitable for everyone. Everybody has a different standard on what they find acceptable. I may find big anime titties acceptable. I don't find furry stuff very acceptable myself. It should not be banned. If I remember correctly, the Abomination tweet that I made, it's gone, but it's archived somewhere. I might be able to find it. But because that art isn't made for me, that doesn't mean that I don't want it to exist. The same way that lolly stuff isn't necessarily my thing, I don't think that I want it gone, because I'm not about censorship. If they start censoring furry art on Patreon, I'd be standing at the front line saying, yeah, we shouldn't be censoring this either. And in some cases, there's people that are on Patreon or virtually anywhere, any platform, and they get to exist. They get to have all of their things still there, and they're doing actual harm to actual humans. Even in the tweet that I showed you earlier, it was showing where all of these reports get sent to these agencies and these charities that are they're supposed to be supporting all of these efforts to stop child trafficking and child exploitation, but they get so drowned out by people like you and your ilk that want everything that you don't like off of the internet. So you report lolly pictures of not actual people, not actual children, and then you get them reported. And guess how many lives you've actually saved in the world? Absolutely zero, because there's actual pedophiles out there actually touching children inappropriately and damaging the rest of their life. This isn't really about censorship at this point anymore, because that ship's already sailed. We know what your true intention is, and it was to piss off everyone. That's why this video is gone. If you really wanted to make a stand, don't private the video. If you want to make sure that we get the pedophiles off the internet, hey, I'm with you. But anime fans aren't. Always constantly blaming other people for something that isn't their fault isn't the way to go about it, and it's a pretty weird blanket statement. And trust me, we've all done it before, myself included. We make blanket statements, but to say that, well, the weebs are pedophiles and that's why they're using this as the guise, well, that's retarded. That's actually like very wheelchair symbol. So I guess the point of this video is don't be a wheelchair symbol and weebs aren't pedophiles. I think that's what I'll leave you with.